everyone, welcome back to another video. As you can see by the title of this video, it's a different topic to what I usually talk about. And we're talking about buying versus renting. Now this topic is very personal and obviously depends where you are in life and just depends on your personality. But I want to try and give a different perspective, make you think outside the box and kind of give you my thoughts and kind of a few scenarios on what will be better long term. Getting a mortgage or buying a house as an investment is a totally different scenario. In this video, I'm going to be specifically talking about buying a house to live in versus renting to live in. And before we get too deep into this video, this is not financial advice. Like I was saying before, this is just to hopefully change your perspective and get you thinking outside the box if this is something you're thinking of doing. I'm thinking long term, so let's get into the video and I'll show you a few scenarios. I also have a bit of experience with this, just a quick little story, background story. My wife and I, we built an investment property about 5-6 years ago. We moved into it in 2017 once we got married, and in 2019 we were playing with the idea of selling it. In 2020 we sold the investment property. The reason we sold the house was because not so much we needed to, but we had, if you live in Sydney or you're watching this and you live in Sydney, you will know the last 5 to 7 years, the housing market and property market here in Australia has had exponential growth. We had a lot of equity tied into that house and we wanted to kind of change our lifestyle. We didn't really want to work. I know that sounds bad, but we wanted to work smarter and we wanted to just be more free. Financial independence comes down to spending less than you earn. And at the time, our monthly expenses were just over $8,000 per month. Now our monthly expenses are just under $4,000, and you can imagine how that feels not having to work for an extra $4,000. We are a lot less stress-free. We can do what we want. We're more independent. We can spend more time together. And it's just an amazing kind of lifestyle now that we have. Moving on with the video, I want to give you my kind of experience, my perspective since reading a lot of books, seeing what a lot of wealthy people do. I just want to chuck this scenario at you real quickly. So where I live, the median house price is $731,000 and to rent it's $450,000. Now I'm going to run with these figures. I'm going to round off $731,000 to $700,000. I want to quickly draw your attention to this Excel spreadsheet right now, where I've just put in some figures and we're going to run with this and build out a scenario. Here in Australia, first home buyers grant, you can get your deposit and your mortgage for 5% down, which is pretty cool. That's what me and my wife did. But the minimum is 10%, and that's the figure we're just going to run with for now. So if you're looking at buying a $700,000 home and getting it on a mortgage, you're going to need 10% down, which is going to be $70,000. So essentially you're going to be borrowing $630,000. So if you're going to be borrowing $630,000, let's just go into this quick mortgage payment calculator quickly, and we're going to run off 4.5% over a 30-year term. So you can see here, the monthly expenses will come to $3,192 per month. The total loan repayments are going to be $1,149,000. So we're going to be paying principal and interest. Of course, you're going to be paying over $500,000 in interest payments alone. That's a lot of money. You can almost buy the house again at the end of 30 years. Now, of course, there are ways you can reduce this by putting more money onto your mortgage, getting a lower interest rate, and there's just a few other variables that can affect this figure, but let's just run with this for now. So moving back onto this spreadsheet I have over here, you can see, as we were saying before, the monthly repayments over 30 years on a $700,000 house would be $3,192. Opposed to your monthly rent, which would be $1,950, the difference is $1,242 you'd be saving, whereas if you went the rent option opposed to getting a mortgage. Let's just say we did this at 21 years old, and we've got to factor in as well, as you know, as I was saying before, my monthly expenses were just over $8,000. Owning a home comes a lot of unexpected kind of expenses with maintenance, land rates, insurances, property tax, everything like that. We were actually kind of quite fortunate. Just before we sold the house, we found out it was just within the warranty period of 6 months. The waterproofing in our house had failed or deteriorated or whatever. And it was going to cost roughly in between $12,000 and $15,000 to fix. Lucky it was within the warranty period, otherwise we would have had to fork that out with our own money. So there are a lot of unexpected, costs that come with owning a home. Once again, this isn't kind of to try and steer you away from buying a house. This is just a different perspective because eventually we want to buy again, but I'll show you what my kind of thoughts are now. So before we get too deep into my next scenario, let's just focus on the mortgage one real quickly. Let's say you bought a house, you went with the mortgage option. As we know, a house is going to appreciate in value. It's not so much an asset if you are living in it. It's kind of more of a liability but you are going to build equity inside the house because on average, it increases in value by 3.5% per year. So if we grab our $700,000 home and we average that at 3.5% per year over 30 years, you can see that that house value from $700,000 now becomes $1,964,000. It's not bad. Over 30 years, the house is still increasing in value. I will just quickly point out that, of course, you are paying more in the mortgage option. That's what me and my wife didn't want to do. We wanted to free up our time more. That's why we are currently renting, and we don't have to kind of go on that hamster wheel and keep on working to pay the mortgage, to pay the maintenance, to pay the taxes, to pay the insurances. We compressed and condensed our monthly expenses dramatically, so we don't have to work as much. So coming back over to my figures over here, you can see 3.5% growth over 30 years on your $700,000 house is now just under $2 million. That is not bad, but let's bring you to a different scenario, a scenario which I never had the knowledge, a few years ago to kind of do. And since reading a lot of books and getting a better understanding on the financial markets and how investments work, this is kind of what I would have done. Now, I'm sure some of you have heard about the S&P 500. The S&P 500 tracks the top 500 companies in the world. Over the past 100 years, it has averaged 10% growth per year. Calculate your risk, do your own knowledge, do your own research. But let me bring you over to this scenario real quickly. So if you had the $70,000 for your initial deposit, but you decided not to put it into a mortgage, but let's say you decided to put the $70,000 into an S&P 500 index, and let's go with 8% per year. It averages about 10%, but let's be a little bit conservative. If we did that for 30 years, but instead we invested the difference, every month we put $1,242 and we purchased the S&P 500 index. By the end of a 30-year period, we would have $2.4 million. Now, coming back to over with this appreciation of the house, you can see it's almost $500,000 more in value doing it this way. Now let's run through a quick scenario real quickly. End of 30 years, you bought the house at 21, you're now 51 years old, and guess what? You own the house. That's an awesome feeling. You no longer have to pay an expense to own the house. All you have to pay for is your living expenses, utilities, gas, electricity, food, and the maintenance on the house with a few insurances. Whereas if you're renting, you still have to fork out $1,950. So now let me bring you over to this scenario where, let's say you were renting for the 30 years since you were 21 years old. You now have an extra almost $500,000, whereas you don't own the home like the person who chose the mortgage. You have $2.4 million in the S&P 500 index. If we grab that figure, you can now draw down on that investment. Since it has accumulated over the 30 years, you can now start taking a little bit per month or per year or however you want. So let's say instead of depositing the money now, you are now 51 years, 30 years has gone by. Person A now owns the home, doesn't have to pay the monthly expenses, but you can either sell the home, get the equity, but you gotta remember house prices are gonna be more or less the same price because inflation, and you're gonna have to either get another mortgage or you're gonna have to downsize, and you're still gonna have to work. Person B who was renting can now draw down on their investment. So instead of depositing money, we're gonna take out $10,000. And then at this point, you are now 51 years old. Let's just say life expectancy is at 100 years old now, since it is getting longer. 51, 61, 71, 81, 91. Let's say you live to 91 years old. That's another 40 years. So instead of depositing money, we are taking money out. We are now taking $10,000 out per month off our initial investment. And let's say the time you're 91 years old, your money's still gonna be compounding and you're gonna have $21 million. Mind you, you are also taking out $120,000 per year. That can easily pay for your rent and your living expenses. And you don't have to work. This is a complete total perspective shift for me. Now, of course, this is long-term mentality. This is a long-term mindset. This isn't gonna happen overnight. So you could now, 51 years old, easily go out, get a mortgage, and it will pay for itself. And more importantly, you're going to have generational wealth, meaning you're going to be able to pass down this investment portfolio to your kids or future families. And then they're going to be able to do the exact same thing, which is my kind of investment strategy and what I'm doing. And if $10,000 a month isn't enough for you, let's just say the cost of living capitalism has gone crazy, maybe you can take out $1,500 a month and then see what happens there. As you can see, the time you're 91, obviously your total investment wouldn't compound as much, but you're taking out 180 grand per year to live while still compounding your money. This is an amazing way to kind of think. So coming back to this scenario, yes, you're gonna have the growth of your house, 3.5% per year. Yes, you're gonna own it in 30 years. Yes, you're gonna get rid of that expense. But person B over here who decided to rent for 30 years, 8% per year in the S&P 500, then at 30-year term, they have just under $2.5 million. They start to draw down on that money and they can do whatever they want. They can continue to rent, they can buy another house, and they don't have to work. The investment is paying passive income. It's passive. It will continue to compound over the next 40 years. And then they can bring that down into generational wealth, and then their kids can do the same thing, and it will just snowball effect into future generations. So I'm also going to direct your attention to what I kind of do with the S&P 500 and what my kind of investment strategy. Ever since selling the house, I put away instantly $20,000 into an Interactive Brokers account to buy an index fund that tracks the S&P 500, and I put in $500 every month. I buy the VTS. The VTS is the Vanguard US Total Market Share Index. It's comprised of 3,700. It's got, your Apple, Tesla in there. It's got Microsoft, Amazon. So it's got all your big companies in there as well, but it's also tracking smaller ones. So it is volatile and it is a more long-term growth strategy. I buy into this every month. I put $500, and as you can see, I started investing in this in June last year, and I've already made a return of 15%. 15% passively. Takes me 5 minutes to log on every month, deposit $500 into the index fund, and that's it. I'll be doing this for the rest of my life, and I'll just keep dollar cost averaging into the index fund. It's a totally different kind of mindset. It's a different approach. So in this video, I hope I kind of gave you guys a different perspective. Once again, what we did, my wife and I, is we got a piece of paper, we drew a line right down the middle, and we pretty much came up with advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons. Our pro side was massive and the cons were very little. At the end of the day, we are renting this very nice house here. We are a lot less stress-free. If we had the house, our living expenses and our monthly living expenses would have been very high still. We both would have been have to work full-time jobs. We would have never seen each other. We would have had to have a second car, which means more insurance, more fuel, more maintenance. We would have been having to pay land rates, council rates, taxes. Everyone's perspective is going to be different. Everyone's personalities are going to be different. We took the risk. We didn't mind. I knew that we are going to be fine, and this is something that we really wanted to do, and now it's paid off massively. I've been able to invest the money from the equity from the house now. It's liquid. I can literally do whatever I want to it. I can put it in a crypto account, and I've made quite a fair bit of money on crypto. I've made quite a fair bit of money trading options and trading Forex. I hope you guys got some value out of this video. I know it's different to what I usually talk about with trading and everything. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to share some of my insight into financial freedom, money, finances, anything like that. And I'll be more than happy to make videos about it, just to kind of show you guys how I live my life, track my expenses, control my expenses, reduce my living expenses, and just be able to live more independent, more free, and just enjoy life. So if you did get any value from this video, smash that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified for any new videos I release and content. Appreciate you guys being here, and I'll see you in the next video.